God morgon allihopa som har hittat in här den här tisdagsmorgonen. Varmt välkomna till dagens webbinar. Det är på ett lite annorlunda tema än vad vi brukar. Idag ska vi få höra lite mer om den nya visselblåsarlagen som i alla fall jag inte hade någon större koll på. Man har förstått att större bolag har behövt ha det, men nu träder en ny lag i kraft här från i december som även då involverar oss lite mindre bolag. Så jag har den stora äran snart att få presentera Frederik Binow från Walor som är expert på det här. Men innan det så ska jag säga till er som tittar att registrera gärna i chatten här till höger och säg hej till min kollega Benny Bergenstråle som kommer vara vår chattmoderator idag. Svara på frågor som dyker upp där. Vi kommer att ställa några där såklart för att höra hur det ser ut hos er och att ni är med och sådär. Men det finns ju såklart också utrymme att ställa egna frågor där. Gör gärna det. Ta tillfället i akt och ställ dem till Frederik. Nu ska jag ploppa upp Frederik här bredvid mig och säga som sagt hej Frederik. Varmt välkommen till Swedma webbinar.
Thank you so much.
Ja, just det. Frederik kommer att prata engelska. Så att har man frågor kring det så samma sak där. Ställ frågor i chatten.
Yes.
Frederik, very warm welcome.
Thank you so much. I am from Denmark. I understand Swedish. My spoken Swedish isn't as good, so I thought you would like a presentation in English way more, even though every information will be regarding the Swedish market and the Swedish legislation. So without further ado, I've created a little bit of a presentation that I want to take you through today.
Yeah. So I say bye-bye from now and see you later.
Perfect. And now everybody should be able to see my screen. So I have a bit of an agenda today. The first part of this presentation will be an introduction to the legislative demand. What is it? Why do we have it? What is a whistleblowing scheme? What are the legal deadlines and requirements? And also, on the other hand, I'm in charge of the company Walor, and we are doing whistleblowing software and have tried to simplify it. And I will later show you how, and then you can make your judgments yourself. So first of all, the introduction. The reason why we're talking here today is because in EU, a new directive was put in place and adopted, which was called the Whistleblowing Directive, which requires all companies with more than 50 employees to have a whistleblowing scheme. Initially, it wasn't all companies that were covered. Like the plus 50s is only going to be the 17th of December this year, but actually in Sweden, already the 17th of July 2022, all companies with more than 250 employees should have a whistleblowing scheme. So what is a whistleblowing scheme, and how are you going to comply with all this? The first thing you need to do is to understand what it is, and we have tried to put it here in a simple one-liner. So a whistleblowing scheme is a combination of policies and guidelines associated with a whistleblowing channel. And a whistleblowing scheme should be viewed upon as a management tool where you actually have the opportunity to discover issues and come ahead of them in time before they escalate into something you can't control. It's also a cultural tool that makes your employees feel more safe and like they have another last resort channel where they can actually voice their concerns easily and safely without fearing for their bonus, their firing, or whatever it could be. And then lastly, there's a change in the discourse in the world. Transparency is on the rise, thankfully, which also means social sustainability, and having a whistleblowing channel actually puts quite a positive light on your organization. And now I would actually just take the time to ask a question in the chat, and that is if anyone here is familiar with the new whistleblowing law and just people can ask or answer yes, no, or maybe, and then we can see how that actually goes. And as you are filling out those, I will just continue slowly here. So, what is a whistleblowing channel? And what you might have heard about and maybe have seen or worked with is actually a physical mailbox in the bathroom. Thankfully, that doesn't work anymore because there was a lot of flaws and a lot of issues on both the whistleblower side, but also on the caseworking side. If you think about it, most whistleblowing reports are anonymous. And when you come with a letter, putting it in the physical mailbox, then the caseworker, the organization afterwards, might have a lot of questions for this caseworker or for this whistleblower. The issue is, however, how are they going to question and ask more questions to the whistleblower? There is none, because they're anonymous and you might not never know who they are. So what you actually need to do, and what is very smart about whistleblowing software in particular, is that you can actually, as an anonymous person, without adding your name, email, phone number, none whatsoever, actually send in a report to the caseworker, and afterwards you will be able to communicate with the caseworker without covering or letting up the cover for your anonymity and stuff like that. Also, we hear some people might think that an email solution is the right solution as well. As I mentioned before, most whistleblowing reports is of anonymous nature, which means email, you will always be able to see who's the sender of it, which means it will be a confidential report either way, but many organizations already have a lot of confidential channels, such as HR, some have other tools and so on. So that's why you need to find something that is particularly good just for whistleblowing, and that is, of course, whistleblowing software. Then there is some deadlines in the legislation, and these are here to help create transparency between the organization and the whistleblower. So the first is, when a whistleblower creates a whistleblowing report, it will take 7 days. You will have up to 7 days as an organization to give up confirmation that you have received the report. And once you have done that, you will have 3 months to provide feedback in terms of, is the case closed? What have we decided to do with the case? What will we do with the case in the future? Or all these other things. What is also very smart about having a system for whistleblowing is that at least we have built these legal deadlines into the platform, so you will get email notifications and don't have to put it into your calendar or do it manually yourself. You will actually have everything automatically, and also with notices before they happen. Then I think it's actually time for a question more. And I see here that the answers are that none have worked, or if none were familiar with the new law, then I would like to ask if anyone has worked with whistleblowing earlier. And that can both be in terms of like a physical mailbox, if it's an email or something different. That is very interesting to understand, just to know what kind of audience I'm talking to. So I will continue as you answer the questions, and I will go to what I call the solution, because now we have talked a little bit about the legislation, and I guess that's how it's always is about legislation. It seems way more complicated than it actually is. So in the solution, I will also go through what is required and what is not required, and of course what we provide. So here I am highlighting what kind of solution that we provide. So we know that since none of you were familiar with the new whistleblowing law, and also you weren't familiar with the new whistleblowing law, many of you probably haven't done anything about this yet. So what we have tried to do is create something very simple, an onboarding process where you also get some benefits from the partnership that we have done with Svetma. But going back to the onboarding, it should be as easy as possible for you guys. It takes, without lying, or I can show you if that's interesting, it takes 10 minutes to actually register. And once you have registered, the next part is actually communicating to your organization, educating your organization. And here, Walor has actually created a lot of video and text material, both in Danish, Swedish, English, a lot of other languages. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you can actually just point to our material. And the same goes for communication templates that will actually help you get started in the blink of an eye. Then what you need to be compliant in terms of the law framework is actually the whistleblower policy. And usually a lot of people go to their lawyers and pay, I don't know how many kroners for a whistleblower policy. But how we have done it is actually from the information you put into the platform when you do the onboarding, we generate a whistleblower policy that's tailored to your specific organization, who the caseworkers are, and all these different things. So you don't have to spend the time and the money going to a lawyer. The other thing you need to have to be compliant with the whistleblowing law is actually a digital reporting channel, as I also mentioned before, the whistleblowing channel. And here we have tried to create something that's very simple, because we also know that probably most of you guys aren't the largest of largest companies, and therefore you're not going to have as many reports as some of the very large companies out there. So you might not access the system every day like you do with your mail or other platforms. So we know that when you enter the system once, twice, 3 times a year, it should be easy and accessible to actually set your mind to it and understand how it works. And that is how we actually differentiate a lot from some of our competitors, is actually making it so simple that it's very easy to do something wrong. Then, of course, we have a partner network, because we know that a lot of companies might not have legal aid or crisis consultancies, crisis communication consultancies and everything like that at hand. So if you ever need any help, you can always go through us, and then you will get a direct introduction that will make you probably go in front of the line from everyone else, because whistleblowing is very serious, of course, and that's why it gets a lot of emphasis. So what I want to ask now is actually if any of you have a system now or have implemented one recently, or just understanding where are you as an audience, and how we can talk about that. Okay. Then while we do that, I will talk a little bit about security, because security is, of course, of the utmost importance when you're talking about sensitive data, whistleblowing, of course. So we focus on high security and encryption. You might know the classical thing, two-factor authentication from other things that you might use, Google or whatever, end-to-end encryption, sorry. And then the architecture is, of course, built on the latest technology. We have built the entire thing ourselves. We have got it penetration tested and everything, just to make sure that it qualifies to the standards. And by having built it from the bottom also enables us to actually work closely together with our customers to actually build features that might not exist right now, that you find interesting or important for your line of work when we're talking about your whistleblowing channel and you're working as a caseworker or looking at it from a whistleblower side. Then what I like very much about presentation is not to sit here and bore you all day with a lot of information and overload like that, but rather give you an introduction to see how the actual software looks from the standpoint of us, and how you can actually maybe be coming to work with it in the future. So I have entered now the whistleblowing caseworker side of the platform. So one side is for, of course, the organization and the chosen caseworkers, and the other side is for the whistleblowers, and I will show that in a bit. So here you can see I have a demo account. In the bottom here, you have the statistics module, where you can see if there is any seasonality in all the reports. Then you have all the messages like notifications here, and they will also not just be sent here, but they will also be sent on your email, so you don't have to go in here and check all the time if a new report has arrived. Then there's all the cases assigned to me as a caseworker, and here you can see there's a lot of tests as it is the demo account. I will go into a case in a bit, but I think we should create our own so you can see how it works. If we go into all the cases, then you can see them here again. You will have a filtering system over here, and you will also have access to all the cases that have been closed. And when they have been closed long enough, they're also, of course, deleted for GDPR reasons, which I don't think we need to get further into on this webinar. Then we will go into the organizational overview, and here you can look at the company information and contact person. Then the link to the reporting channel that we will go through in a bit. Also, we got some custom requests that people wanted a QR code for their personal bathroom instead of the physical mailboxes. Then we created a QR code that you can put up in your bathroom. And then, of course, there's a copy to the whistleblower policy. Before going there, I just want to show you all the caseworkers and where you can add them. In here, you can see I'm the only caseworker assigned to the case. Here I can add which languages I speak, what position I'm in. I can add a photo, all these different things that makes it more easy for the whistleblower actually to choose between which caseworker should get it. Lastly, I want to show you that we can actually in here create custom questions for the reporting flow. But before you sit and fantasize about what that is, I think we should take a look at the reporting flow. So we will copy the link here. We will open a new tab, and then we will insert it. Then we're actually on the whistleblowing channel for the whistleblower side of things. And here you can create a report. You can access an existing report. And then you can actually also up here look at the employee guides, what is whistleblowing, and you can look at the whistleblower policy down here. So the first thing the whistleblowers usually want to look at is what is whistleblowing, the employee guides. Now we sit here and talk about it, and plenty of you didn't know anything about it. Imagine your colleagues and other employees. They might not have any idea about like what is whistleblowing in general. So what we have done here is actually created a lot of videos and text material that will go into depth about these different things. So whistleblowing in general. Then you have a whistleblowing scheme. What is that? Who can create? How does it work? And then lastly, how does the reporting process work? So you guys don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to point to our material that will make it easier for you to get started. Then there is the company's whistleblowing policy. And in here, it's the very legal document. So I won't spend too much time in here, but this document is actually what we have translated into more of a normal language. So the whistleblowers can actually access it in here and get to understand what is whistleblowing and what is said in the policy as well. So what is very interesting to look at is, of course, to create a report. And that you do here. The first thing you need to think about is how do you want to appear? Is it anonymously or is it confidentially? And if you're not sure what the difference is, then you can actually read about it here. Most whistleblowers actually make their reports anonymously, and that is of course due to most organizations having a confidential reporting channel already existing. So let's go with an anonymous choice. Then the next one here is actually describe the events that you that you encountered. But now, for the sake of this, I will just do Svetma test 1, 2, 3. Then this question is actually a custom question that you can add that I just showed you before. But for now, I just fill out the description again, test, test, test. You can add as many file and file types as you like down here. And then in the bottom right corner, we have actually put in some information that for the whistleblower could be very relevant, because whistleblowing is a very psychological, difficult and tough task, and sometimes they can feel like they betray their organization even though they're trying to help. So when they get to this stage and phase, it's quite important that we help them as much as possible, not with too many questions, but also a helping hand, like having some extra questions here actually helps whistleblowers put in more reports and also better information-wise. Now we have filled out the things here, and we go to the next. And then it's actually for the whistleblower to choose between the caseworkers that are accessible from the company. And here you can see that there's actually only one option, and that is me. But if there were multiple, we would be able to see them. Then you could see what languages you speak, what positions you are in, like a picture. That would actually be a good thing for the whistleblower, because once again, a very psychologically tough exercise, and seeing a person that you might know or are familiar with will make it way more easier for you to actually finish the report and send it. It must be said that right now it's only one caseworker, but the whistleblower can add multiple caseworkers to one case. So that is also a very important information. Then we go to the next. And here the whistleblower will, before they send in the case, see the total overview of what has been gone into the report. And of course, this is a little bit scarce, but it's also for demonstrational purposes. When we send the report, we get a whistleblower code. And the whistleblower code, because we haven't added any information about ourselves or anything, then we get the whistleblower code here, which is the username and password to access the case again. A lot of people sometimes are a little quick to continue from here, so we made sure that you actually go to another step. And then here we again, remember, save the whistleblower code, and then now it's copied, put it somewhere safe where only you have access to it. Then we're done as a whistleblower. But if we were a little bit curious to see how does it work now that I've created a report, then I can go to access existing reports. I can add in the whistleblower code, and then I can click the next. And then as a whistleblower now, this is the very smart part, is actually being able to communicate with the caseworkers even though they have no idea who you are. They have no idea about finding out who you are, because nothing is tracked, and this is just like paradise for whistleblowers. So let's just write a message saying, hey, case worker, when can I expect an answer to my report? I will send this. And now as a whistleblower, one should say that I am done with everything. And I can now just wait and re-access the system a few times to see if any questions pop up from the caseworker. So this is the very simple whistleblowing reporting channel, where we try to keep everything so it's not scattered between a lot of different folders, but you have the employee guides, you have the whistleblower policy, the option to create a report, and the option to access a report again. So going back to the caseworker, I will go back to the dashboard. And as you can see out here just now, a report has been given to me, and there's a new message in it. Now, because I've had this window open for so long time, I'll just reconnect. Also, you can see then the two-factor authentication. So I will just add in the code and everything. And then I want the security code sent on email. And not to be rude or anything, but in here I will get my two-factor authentication code, and then you see this working. And now we are back into the platform. We will have it in Swedish. And while it is thinking, then you can see that here, now the new report that we just created arrived. So here we will go into the report, where you will be able to see here on the top when the report was created, who it was created by. Right now it's an anonymous person, so nothing is written here, but let's say it maybe was a confidential report where you add your personal information, your email, your phone number, then all the information would be accessible here. Then a very important thing is the legal deadline. It's up here, and here you can actually read about what you have to do about the legal deadline. On the other hand, down here you have a description. You have the files that is associated to the case. You have a history log that will actually make you be able to go back into the case to see if anything maybe happened, if you were multiple that worked with it. Did we do something wrong? Was someone sending a message where they shouldn't have, or stuff like that. Then you can categorize a case. You can give it a status in terms of, okay, is it me that is having to do something, or am I actually waiting on an answer I ask the whistleblower? You have the communication module, which you just saw from the whistleblower side before, and then you have internal notes that is only visible to the caseworkers. So let's say that I now, as a caseworker, want to give a answer or a receipt to the whistleblower in order to comply with the 7 days of the legal deadline up here. Then I might want to say, hello, whistleblower, thanks for your report. This is a receipt for your report. We will get back to you as soon as possible. And then when I send this, please notice up here that the deadline changes. That now you have 91 days, which is exactly 3 months from now. And this will be the next deadline where you actually have to work with the case in whatever way you want to. But this is the very easy and appetite-ish outlook, so you don't have to, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel and create something that's rocket science. It should be fairly easy to use, go back and forth and so on. If some are actually a bit worried about the 7-day legislation about giving a receipt, we are almost ready with a new feature that allows us to add a automatic answer, like, and the ones we've seen over summer, like I'm on vacation, I'll be back in the 4th of August or something like it. The same will you be able to do here, so you always comply with the 7 days, and then you can make a standard answer, something like this. But this is the platform all in all, and it's quite simple. There's not much more to show, so I will go back to the presentation. And now I have something here, and that is, of course, the pricing. We have done a partnership with Svedma, and we offer unlimited languages to you as users, unlimited numbers of users on the platform as well, and also a discount on the subscription on a yearly basis. Additionally, we are customarily doing a setup fee, but we also remove that, so that's also free as members. So you can just see here to your right that we actually segment our customers into the number of employees, and the prices are here. Of course, we will also send the presentation afterwards, and so that will be easier for you guys to actually see. So the final thing I want to say is, and probably a question you might all have, is how to get started. And we have created a unique register link. It takes 5 to 10 minutes to set up, and you will actually be able to test the system for 14 days if you want to try it on your own and not just what you have seen from what I've done. And if you were to have any questions or anything like it, I'm also very happy to go through the system again, or talk a little bit about the consequences for your particular organization. And if you want to do that, then you can actually get in contact with me by scanning this one or reaching out to me on one of these channels. But otherwise, I'm actually very much open to any questions you might have. I know this was a quick go through, but it's actually not as complicated as some make it to be.
Hej, jag hoppar in här lite grann. Vi har fått ett par frågor i chatten nämligen.
Yes.
And they want to have some examples of different whistleblowing from different branches. And also if you can give examples of what and how companies worked with the solution.
Yes, very good question. How different examples is actually, so there is a statistic here in the EU that we 55% of all the whistleblowing reports were actually had harassment nature, either physically or verbally here in the EU. Then there was the economical one, which is the other part of it, that was 36%. But that is also because most organizations that works with like lending and so on have to have a whistleblowing scheme. So whistleblowing reports can be of a lot of different natures. That can be theft, it can be corruption, it can be harassment, all these different things. It's very much different from industry to industry. We have worked a lot with the food and beverage industry in Denmark, and there is a lot of harassment, unfortunately, in that specific industry, because a lot, like, people are not sitting on like opposite sides of the tables, but they're actually like going close, and it's another a bit more tough work environment, I would say. And the second question was?
Can you give examples of what and how companies working with this solution or another solution like this?
Yes. So a lot of companies actually, as I experience it, have a lot of different reporting channels existingly. That can be the managers you go to, that can be the HR, that can be some other tools and so on. So the whistleblowing channel here is very much just a last resort tool for your employees to actually be able to make reports of different kind. We actually encourage people not to only say that it should be only whistleblowing reports that go in here, but maybe also other things, because maybe a whistleblower doesn't know like what goes within whistleblowing and what doesn't do it like in the legal framework. So if you look at it in that way, you actually want to have as many reports as entirely possible, because even though they might fall without the legal framework, it might help you as an organization. So we see companies work with it in different manners. That also depends on how big they are and what industries they are within. Other questions I also usually get asked is how many caseworkers should be in an organization, and that very much depends on the same answer as before. We usually say that in order to have or at least minimize some risky, you would actually need at least 2 caseworkers in an organization in order to make sure that if one is implicated, you can always choose the other as receiving the report. But 2 is the absolute minimum. 3 and 4, also depending on how big you are, is the more common ones. The next question I then get is, who should it be in the organization? And here we actually see that it's very different again from size and industry, but usually it's actually the HR, head of HR, that's one of them. Then it's someone in in the board of directors. Sometimes it's also a board member, and other times it can also be external parties that you can add to the system, and then they will of course also be able to receive cases. That could be a lawyer, an auditor, something like that.
Great. And what will happen to those companies who will not have this in place by December 17th this year?
Very good question.
Is there any fees or what?
So there's a few countries actually that have added some fees, and in Denmark, for example, there is no fees. If we look at Sweden, you are in the same boat as us. Right now, we need the government to actually put out at least a fee amount. Right now, they haven't just decided upon what it is going to be, but it will be here very soon, and then we will all know what it is. But it's probably not going to be as big as GDPR, also because this isn't as complicated as GDPR, just so to be transparent.
Yeah, thank you. Fler frågor hörni i chatten? Annars så tycker jag att det här känns superbra. Som sagt, det är inte Swedmas normala område, men i och med att det ändå har med integritet, personuppgifter och så vidare att göra, så tyckte vi att det var viktigt att vi ändå kunde ställa upp med lite information kring detta, då vi själva faktiskt inte hade hört om den här nya lagen. Så det känns superkul att ha fått ha det här, Fredrik. Och som Fredrik nämnde så kommer vi att skicka ut presentation i efterhand och även skicka ut inspelningen från dagens webbinar. Så att ni som var här kan också dela det med andra kollegor som inte hade möjlighet att vara med, men som tycker att det känns intressant att få veta. Bra, det kommer inga fler frågor i chatten. Då har vi vunnit 20 minuter. Jo.
It's always good to be on a bit in front of the calendar. Then there is time to grab a coffee or anything before the next meeting.
Exactly. Stort tack Fredrik. Kontaktuppgifter till dig finns för de som behöver det. Och till er andra så säger jag tack snälla för idag. Håll utkik i vårt kalendarium för kommande event. Redan nu idag klockan 12 så har vi faktiskt ett event tillsammans med vår chefsjurist Mattias och 2 representanter från Google. Där vi kommer att titta lite grann på de här 4 domarna som IMY, integrationsmyndigheten, kom ut med precis innan semestern. Eller kanske till och med början av någon semester. Så har ni inte anmält det så hör av er till mig. Anmälningen är stängd, men jag kan absolut fixa en länk till dem som vill ha det. Så hör av er i så fall om ni vill äta lunch och lyssna på oss igen. Annars så ses vi snart. Ha en superfin tisdag. Tack snälla ni.